Welcome back to episode 3 of Crash Talk Fantasy. I'm your host, Ben Lynch, and I am here with
Jarett Hackney
and AJ Lolly.
AJ is no longer sick.
I'm
back.
back.
All right, let's start it off hot with players of the week. AJ, who's our player of the week?
So, player of the week, I think if you're a fantasy owner, you know who I'm going to be talking about here. Week 6 has got to go to Chris Godwin. Absolutely amazing game, and Baker Mayfield absolutely delivered also. Chris Godwin had 11 receptions for 125 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, giving him 35.5 fantasy points, which is insane. And credits to Baker Mayfield for delivering the ball to him. Yeah.
Didn't he have like 3 picks?
I don't know.
He still had 40 points. I mean, they still lost because they're the Buccaneers, but
Who they play? Oh, Saints.
Yeah,
Oh my
gosh,
he
they
had
got
3
blown out.
interceptions.
yeah, they got blown out.
Yeah.
I really like Baker Mayfield, though. I'm a big Baker Mayfield fan.
My player of the week is none other than Sean Tucker. He had a great game with a rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, and 136 yards. So he had a pretty good game.
Yeah, and I think my player of the week's got to go to Joe Mixon. Obviously, coming back from an ankle injury and posted 132 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns, like 31 points, a pretty good return. I mean, that guy always puts up points. I mean, he's been out for a few weeks due to injury, but yeah, I think he's a solid guy. Okay, so, a player that I think should be picked up if he's still on your waivers by now is Sean Tucker. I got him. I think I'm going to keep him on the bench for maybe another week, see what he's going to do, see if they give him enough snaps next week, because I think eventually he's going to take Rachaad White's job, and I think he'll be the running back 2 over there or split with Bucky Irving, and he could have, the same production that he had this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll give him the ball more this week because White's hurt, or he's questionable, so they'll probably just baby him a little bit.
My person that I think you should pick up in the waivers is Tyrone Tracy from the Giants. He came off of a pretty good game against the Bengals. He had 17 attempts for 50 rushing yards, but he also had a rushing touchdown. So that got him 22 points. And the week before, he had an amazing game on the floor. He had 18 attempts for 129 yards against the Seahawks. And I think that you should pick him up, considering the fact that there's only 33% of people that actually picked him up. So I think he's a good pickup to have. Maybe not start him this week because they're going to be going against the Eagles, but maybe next week.
Love that.
My player of the week that I would suggest picking up off waivers if you could is Wan'Dale Robinson. He's pretty consistent, usually getting in around the 10s, and he has a good matchup against the Eagles this week, so I would suggest picking him up. Also, this week we had some breaking news with Davante Adams going to the Jets.
That's going to be great for Davante Adams managers. Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. Also, Garrett Wilson managers.
Yep, that's me.
Garrett Wilson managers, actually not the worst thing for you because Davante Adams is going to be drawing all the top corners and coverage in that offense now. So Garrett Wilson might actually be open more. He's not going to be getting double covered. He's not going to be getting pressed. I think he's going to have way more opportunities and put up more points because I know a lot of people have been disappointed with him so far this year.
Yeah,
Also,
but the last 2 weeks he's been doing good.
Can we admire the fact that first episode we actually talked about Davante going to the Jets? That was one of our predictions.
I think AJ predicted that Davante would go to the Jets, so
yes,
good for him.
I think that's just outstanding ball knowledge by us.
Yeah.
That's extreme ball knowledge. All right, once again, I'm going to predict that Buccaneers running backs should be sat this week. They're going against the Ravens, who have a really good run defense. I think they're going to get shut down. Last time I predicted that Rachaad White and Bucky Irving would put up nothing. I think they had 5 apiece, so I would really listen to me.
The person that I think you should start this week is Mike Evans against the Baltimore Ravens. They've allowed 43 points to receivers. And coming off of the game that they just had against the Saints, I think they're going to have extremely high confidence. And Baker's going to learn from his mistakes. I don't think he's going to throw 3 picks this game. So I think that Mike Evans is going to get a lot of targets and a lot of yards. Same thing with Chris Godwin.
One especially that's, going into my flex spot this week, after the last few where I, haven't put him up there, and it's probably a mistake by me. He had one bad game, but that's it. Jameson Williams has been surprisingly great for the Lions. He only gets like 2 or 3 catches a game, but he finds a way to turn them all into big plays. And, I mean, if you look at his lines, like, he'll have 5 receptions for 120 yards, 5 for 70 yards, 2 for 80 yards, 3 for 76, and he just finds the end zone. I mean, he's really prone to making huge plays, and going against Minnesota, that's given up 10th most points to wide receivers, I think that he has a really good matchup.
I agree, considering his size, and makes him a really good target. So,
yeah,
I agree.
Also, I think we need to talk about one of his touchdowns coming last week against the Cowboys. What an embarrassing game that was. I wonder when Dak's going to retire, because he had about 3 points. So for all you Dak fantasy managers that are still trying to ride out a bygone era, I think you should drop him and pick up someone that's actually good.
Yeah, I picked him up last week off waivers and thought maybe he'll have a good week. But
Wait, did you start him?
Yeah, I started him.
Ooh.
But I wasn't going to win last week.
A full 2 points for Jarett.
Okay, it was 5, but
It's 3 in my league. Someone that I'm trying to trade for right now is Kenneth Walker.
why?
Because he's raw. He gets his rushing attempts. He does like 13 rushing attempts per game, like average. But then he also catches so much through the air. Like his value is insane. If you take a look, he wasn't there for against New England or Miami. But other than that, he literally is not dry, except for against the Giants, which, that's a hard matchup for him. He hasn't dropped under 20 points the whole entire season. Obviously, my biggest disappointment, which I'm not just disappointed with him as a fantasy player, I'm disappointed in him as a person, because I think it's time for him to just call it quits, recognize that he sucks like he always has, and just, leave the league in grace instead of getting blown out on primetime games. Dak Prescott, obviously.
Okay, here we go.
Dak Prescott. What do you think CeeDee Lamb feels when they're down 47 to 9, and all he hears is, "Okay, here we go," and then he gets snapped, and then Dak throws a pick? If I was him, I'd be requesting a trade so quickly, or I'd just be telling him, "Hey, listen, I'm not gonna play unless you get rid of this guy."
Yeah, they should start Trey Lance.
Okay, here we go.
I think Trey Lance would honestly be.
Bro, he'd work in that offense.
So my biggest the biggest disappointment this week for me has got to be DJ Moore, who dropped a solid 6 points against the Jaguars. He had 4 receptions for 20 yards, and that's all he did. He didn't do anything else. He dropped a solid 6 points, which is the lowest amount of points he's dropped all year. He's stayed pretty consistent in the double digits, like 10, 11, 15, and then against the Panthers he got 27 because it's the Panthers. But yeah, he did terrible against the Jags.
My disappointment this week was James Conner. He had 7 rushing attempts, 24 yards, 4 receptions for 22 yards, and a fumble. So not the best week for him. For injury report this week, one player that could come back from injury is Cooper Kupp. He hasn't been active since week 2, and I'm really hoping for him to come back.
There are a few people that were actually concussed this week. Chris Olave, who is out, he will not play Thursday against the Broncos, which, I kind of expected that to happen. It takes a little longer than that to recover from a concussion, but he got rocked in their game. And Marvin Harrison Jr., who actually has a better chance of playing because it's on Monday. I think he could be cleared by then. But he actually put up 0 points for me because he didn't have a single reception before he got knocked out in I think it was the second quarter. So, yeah, Chris Olave actually put up even worse numbers somehow, because when he got rocked during his game, he actually fumbled the football. So he had a full negative 1.5 points this week. That's embarrassing.
That's very embarrassing. My player that I'm going to talk about this week that might come back from injury, and I hope he does, Jordan Mason. He had a shoulder injury against the Seahawks, and our third-string running back had to come in, who actually didn't do that bad. But Jordan Mason, he's been doing pretty good all year, and I think that we really need him, like this week against the Chiefs. So hopefully he comes back. Yeah.
Time for our final. It is time for our final segment, Hot Takes.
So my hot take is if you have Austin Eckler drop him, please. He's not good at all. If you picked him in like the first or second round, I genuinely feel bad for you. He's not a good fantasy running back anymore. He's not good at anything he does. I think he should be out of a job, personally.
I don't know. His head looks pretty nice.
His production has been pretty mid. He's been dropping like 10 points, which is not that good.
Yeah, well, he's on waivers for me.
All right, so my hot take is that even though J.K. Dobbins has possibly one of the hardest schedules for a running back coming up, being Cleveland, Tennessee, Cincy, Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, I think each of those weeks he will not drop under 17 points. I think he's got the production to do it, and he runs like a beast. I love J.K. Dobbins, and I think he's going to go 17 or over for the next, let's see, what week are we going into? We're going to week 7 next week. I think from 7 through 14, he's not going to drop under 17 points a day.
I agree.
Hot take of the week is that Caleb Williams, by the end of the season, will be a top 5 quarterback.
It's a horrible take.
It's a hot take.
Actually, no, it is that's the hottest take we've had all year. Thank you for listening to episode 3 of Crash Talk Fantasy. We'll see you next week.